Xin chào. Hey everyone. The Twin Kieu, or The Tale of Kieu, was written by Ngyuen, who lived between 1765 and 1820. He's a celebrated poet in Vietnam. He was born into a wealthy family and served as an ambassador to China, where he learned about a romance which he translated to Vietnamese, which became the basis of this tale. Written in 1800 or thereabout, it is 3,254 lines long in couplet format, about 150 pages. The Tale of Kieu is the greatest classical poem of Vietnam. In this video, I'll tell you everything you need to know about the book. I'll summarize and discuss its themes, and at the end, I'll tell you why it's still one of the most loved pieces of literature in Vietnam. First, let me tell you a few facts about the country. A country of 90 million people, Vietnam in ancient Chinese means people of the south, or fairy-like dragons of the south. On the map, Vietnam looks like a dragon, with Hanoi as its eye and biting Laos, or an S-shaped long beach along the coast of South China Sea. If you want to buy an ocean-facing house, head to Vietnam. Another long but narrow country facing the ocean is Chile. Apparently, the two countries are best buddies when it comes to business. If you want to get places in Vietnam, you need a motorbike. Why? Because the country is too narrow for cars. I'm joking. Food means a lot to the Vietnamese people, that they even have a god for it. Ong Tao is the god of the kitchen, who shows up every year in a minimal robe in February during the Vietnamese New Year. Luckily, it's a warm country. The currency is called dong. Don't laugh. It may refer to the sound of a bronze coin makes if you drop it into a jar, like ding dong sound. Spoken Vietnamese language is tonal, which means a word written with the same Roman letters is read in many different tones with different meanings. Timothy Allen, the translator of this book, has included a few examples in the book. For example, ba can mean grandma, uncle, dad, poison, rubbish, random, bait, or a hug, depending on how it's pronounced. Nguyen is the most popular surname, almost 40% of the people, just like Kim in Korea. Just like Korea, this surname was awarded to the people by a king with the same surname, which was later used by anyone as a pass to avoid persecution. It means a musical instrument. Not surprisingly, it's also the surname of the author of The Tale of Kieu. First, let me summarize the story and then look at some of the themes and answer the question why it has remained so popular in Vietnam. The backdrop of the story is the Le dynasty that ruled Vietnam from 1533 to 1789, when the country was divided between the north and the south, ruled by different people. This somehow mirrors the 20th century when the communist north was in conflict with the American-backed south. Despite the political conflict in the background, the story is firmly focused on one character, a young girl whose story mirrors the political loyalty in the country between the old and the new. Kieu is a beautiful, smart, and talented lute player. One day, while visiting her ancestor's grave with her younger sister, she visited the grave of a dead girl who appears to have had very similar life to her, which is full of misfortunes. In this case, it's not the ghost of her past, but of her future that haunts her before she embarks on her life. The idea of ghosts being around is still very strong in Vietnam, as well as other Asian countries like Malaysia and Indonesia, especially the disturbed ghost. In the novel Beauty is a Wound by Eka Kurniawan from Indonesia, ghosts play a major role. Kieu also meets and falls in love with a boy called Kim, but she refuses to have sex with him, telling him to wait. She knows their union based on lust will ruin their marriage and everlasting happiness. She personifies innocence, purity, and loyalty. Soon her family is wrongly accused by a silk seller. Kieu volunteers to marry a rich man in return for money to prevent her father and brother from going to prison. Her loyalty to her family is so immense, which is a Confucius virtue. This is still in practice today. Your loyalty to your family elder are very important in Vietnam. As I was trying to find an easy way to say hello in Vietnamese, at the start of this video, I learned that the word depends on who you're talking to, so age and gender come into place. Okay, back to the story. But the rich husband turns out to be a pimp. After taking her virginity, he sells her to a brothel. At the brothel, Kieu refuses to have sex and attempts suicide, but she is rescued and she survives. The matron of the brothel breaks her resistance by tricking her to a staged elopement with a playboy who is second man to rape her. Sometime later, she meets a wealthy man called Tuk, who buys her out of the brothel. They get married, but here's another twist. This kind man is already married to another woman called Lady Huon, the daughter of the Prime Minister no less. Upon hearing this, the powerful wife kidnaps Kieu and makes her slave. Later, she manages to steal some valuables and escape to take refuge at a temple. A nun called Ziak takes her in, but once she knows she has stolen property, she is sent to a safe house. But it turns out to be another brothel. At the second brothel, she meets a rebel leader called Tuhai, and they get married. But Kieu is tricked by the king's general. Kieu convinces her husband to surrender because the king has called an amnesty, which is not true. Soon her husband is killed, she is raped by the army general and forced to marry a local official to prevent a scandal. She attempts suicide for the second time by drowning herself into a river, but again she is saved by the nun. Meanwhile, Kim, her first love, becomes an official and helps Kieu's parents. He has been searching for her and finally finds her with the help of the nun. They reunite, but things have gone so bad that she feels her body is soiled and damaged, therefore not worthy of him anymore. Her bad karma ends, but so does her self-worth. So she refuses to sleep with him, saying that if he truly loves her, he should not have sex with her. This seems anticlimactic for a man who spends his entire life looking for her. But seeing things from her perspective, she had sex with a lot of men she didn't love. Kim, being a true gentleman, accepts her decisions and they live together as husband and wife without needing to have sex. And finally, Kieu feels accepted by everyone around her and they can live in peace. Now let me tell you some of the themes in the book. There are many themes in this story. The theme of family loyalty is very central. Confucianism, which was dominant philosophy in Vietnam, stressed children's loyalty to a family. But it goes even deeper. The tale of Kieu is in fact based on a Chinese romance. The author turned it into a socio-political novel that highlights the North-South conflict in Vietnam at the time. Another major theme is beauty. Kieu's beauty means she is in demand among men, and twice she ends up in a brothel. Beauty as a curse is very prominent in Asian folklore. I discussed this in my video on the Indonesian novel Beauty is a Wound by Eka Kurniawan. In that novel too, the main protagonist is a beautiful woman who is passed around among men. Beauty might put you ahead in many ways. In this tale, it seals Kieu's fate as a prostitute and as a sex object. Acceptance of one's fate is also a theme here, prominent in many Buddhist cultures. As I discussed in my video on the tale of Genji from Japan, life is ultimately nothing but suffering. Kieu is a very talented musician, also educated, but they don't do much to change her fate. The story appears to say that you shouldn't rely on your talent, instead accept your fate. This somewhat goes against the current Vietnamese value of revering teachers and learned people. In order to be financially successful, a good education is a must nowadays. But in Kieu's case, her talent as a poet and musician not only didn't help her, but also added to her misery sometimes. An element of magic is also present. Early on her way to the grave, she has a kind of dream of future miseries. It appears her life was predetermined or scripted by someone else, and she was merely an actor in it, which is a bit similar to Don Quixote. Injustice runs deep here. Her family is wrongly accused and ruined. Kieu is a talented and educated girl from a middle-class family, but she doesn't get to enjoy any of it. The book blames her bad karma. Those 15 years appear like a test for her, full of trials and tribulations. Just in the Greek classic by Homer, Odyssey has to endure years of drifting around. But here we have a female protagonist who also goes through many trials and she survives it all. I think part of her misfortune is her own doing. For example, she refuses to make love to the one man she loves at the beginning. Later on, when living with her husband Tuk, who is a good man, she is the one who suggests he should go and visit his first wife, which gives them the opportunity to kidnap her and make her a slave. Later, with her second husband, she is the one tricked by the king's general, which results in her husband getting killed. She's educated but very naive about the world. Perhaps the author wanted to emphasize her innocence and good heart that trusted people. As a protagonist, she is very interesting. She is educated, a talented artist, and beautiful. She plays the lute and composes poetry. The author seems to suggest that her misery was because of her talent and beauty. She is also determined and assertive, as she refuses to submit to the brothel landlady and even twice commits suicides, each time saved by others. She sacrificed herself for her family and sacrificed her husband to save thousands of lives. She makes mistakes and underestimates others, but also takes responsibility. She is naive and innocent. She goes through all the trials and tribulations of any heroes. She forced to prostitution, slavery, and sham marriages, but she survives it all to be reunited with her family and love. Unfortunately, she thinks it's too late because she has lost her chastity, which is sad. One of the most beautiful scenes is when Kim returns to see Kieu after years of absence. He finds the house abandoned, window open, moss and ivy cover the house and its walls. A dreadful scene of shock and dismay. It's very sad and poignant. The story is very realistic despite too many twists and turns. The characters' motivations are very real and convincing. The language is also precise with concrete imagery and simplicity that makes it real and convincing. The moon symbolism is prominent as it was a symbol of Ming dynasty in China. Ming is a combination of Chinese characters for the moon and the sun. Other natural symbols like flowers appear a lot. One of the most beautiful symbolism in the book is about Kieu. She is likened to a leaf in the wind, constantly swayed and harassed by the relentless wind of social injustice. Now let me tell you a few things about the translation. I read the 2019 Timothy Allen's translation published by Penguin Classics titled The Song of Kieu. I have to say the translation reads very well and the language is beautiful and lyrical. The original was written in lukbat form with a strict rhyme scheme, with lines alternating between 6 and 8 syllables, plus tonal rules that are common in Vietnamese. I think Timothy Allen has gone for the poetic while staying faithful to the original story and has captured the atmosphere and sensibilities of the characters. From what I have gathered, it's perhaps the best translation out there that brings the 19th century Vietnamese to modern English. He has also included a lot of notes and explanations and also a brief history of how the story has traveled from China to Vietnam. Timothy Allen's translation of early part of the poem won him the Times Stephen Spender Prize in 2008. Here's an example so you can get an idea. Sadness in the harbor in the afternoon, when a tall ship slips far away. Sadness in the rivers that run to the seas, and the flowers that drifts in the current. Sadness in the shimmer of wilting grass, where land meets sky and everything turns blue. Sadness in the wind that whips about the cove, and the waves that crashes against the headland. Alone among alien rivers and foreign hills, she writes homesick songs of exile. I think the word drift best describes Kieu's life, as I said earlier that according to Buddhism, life is a series of drifts. Now let me answer why it has become such a beloved Vietnamese classic. Despite the tale having a Chinese origin, its setting is mainly in China, it is a Vietnamese classic and loved by everyone. Anyone who has read it would tell you how beautiful it is. At the heart of the tale is loss, but most crucially a feeling of nostalgia of past. It also depicts a Vietnamese spirit that despite all the hardship and struggle, Kieu never gives up on her love for her family and Kim. This sense of optimism is very much part of the Vietnamese culture. Despite whatever hardship you face, very few Vietnamese sit down to complain. Instead, they get on with life. Vietnam is also considered as one of the happiest countries in the world. In the case of Kieu, it's her resilience that triumphs at the end, which must give its Vietnamese readers an optimistic outlook, a long-term perspective, and a mature way of seeing the world in the passage of time. I think having such a female protagonist is also very important. I don't want to be too political here. From what I know, the Communist parties both in China and Vietnam promoted women's rights to some extent. So the tale of Kieu must have been seen as a good inspiration for women. Also, as Timothy Allen points out in his introduction, it has agricultural folks against the merchants. Kieu's father is accused by a silk trader and unjustly. As we know, the Communist parties both in China and also Vietnam were peasant-based and distrusted merchants as too westernized. Well, not now, as both countries have embraced capitalism. The book also has an obvious anti-deception, anti-corruption or anti-exploitation message, but I think it hits deeper chord among Vietnamese people. But the main reason it has stayed on as the most important work of Vietnamese literature is in its feeling of home and family and the sacrifice and the hardship one goes through to have a home and protect your family. Of course, also the beautiful rendering of Vietnamese language is also a major factor. I read it in English, but you can feel the lyrical beauty, the concrete imagery, while also holding the highest level of realism depicting Kieu as a real and relatable hero, as if it's written recently. Kieu's self-sacrifice will bring tears to your eyes, but it's her resilience that makes you pause and admire. For me, its ultimate message was no matter how terrible life may seem at times, there's always hope that things will take a turn for better. In the bleakest moments of our lives, it's hope that carries us past the abyss. At the end, her family accepted Kieu as who she was, not as who she had been. It is her strength of character and her resilience and her love that define her, not her past names or terrible miseries. She's not a victim, she's a hero. I think that resonates with many people, not only in Vietnam but all over the world. In life, most people fall down, crawl, tumble, stand up, then drift, fall down and stand up again. Unless you're a lucky smooth sailor. Tale of Kieu is a metaphor that life is not easy, with its highs and lows. Now, if you want to win my copy of the Song of Kieu, just leave a comment down below. Any comment is fine. I'll select one person randomly and send the book to you anywhere in the world. I mean anywhere in the world. Unless you live among penguins or polar bears. Please take a moment to share this among friends on social media. I'm on a journey to read the best of literature from every country on earth. Thank you for watching.